Are you a fan of mystery, or you've just heard about Liane Moriarty and you don't know which one of her books to read first? Well, if so, then I think today's video can help you. Today I will be giving a ranking of all of Liane Moriarty's books. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today I will be taking a look at Liane Moriarty and her books. I love Liane Moriarty. I've enjoyed reading every one of her books, and I'm excited for a book that she has coming out in just a month or so, and I very much so look forward to reading it. That being said, let me start with this big caveat, and that is that I enjoy every one of Liane Moriarty's books, so I don't think you can go wrong with reading one of her books, but there are some that I enjoy a little more than any of the others. And so for today, I'm going to be ranking all of the books that she has out so far. At the bottom of the list, I'm going to collectively put her 3 books for children. Not that they're bad books. I actually think they're pretty fun to read. Nicola Berry, who is the main character of these books, is a teenage girl that is sent on quests all throughout the galaxy to help save various worlds and solve intergalactic problems. It's a cute read. It's fun. It's obviously not as good as her stuff for adults, and I don't just mean that because it's not intended for me, but I do have a few quibbles with the series as a whole. I think it's just a little too silly, but I very much look forward to reading them with my own daughter as she gets older. I do think they're good enough for that. At number 9 on the list, we're actually going to put her first book. It's called 3 Wishes. I enjoyed reading this book. However, it is one of her only books that when I finished it, I couldn't really tell you all that much about the plot that I thought was really exciting in the way that the rest of her books are. I just came away thinking, oh, that was a cute story, and it did have a lot of her main strengths, her ability to get into people's heads and to describe what they're thinking and to give what I think is a very authentic thought process. I think that is one of her greatest strengths, and she does really well with explaining people's relationships and describing all the neat little details that I think are a hallmark of her books about the way people interact. That being said, I didn't actually think the storyline itself was all that interesting, and so I would have to put this at the bottom of the list. At number 8 would be The Husband's Secret. I think that this book has a lot of good stuff in it. I will admit that my issue with this tends to come from one specific thing, and not everyone would necessarily have that same problem, and that is that the mystery at the middle of this book, you actually find out pretty early on. One of the things you find out in her books, sometimes you don't solve the mystery until the very end. In some of her books, you know the mystery early on, but there's this big question of what's the severity of it. This is one of those books where you not only find out pretty early on, it's a pretty severe mystery, and I just never really got over it. I thought that by the end, she didn't quite wrap it up as neatly as I would have liked. She tried to, but not in a way that I felt was very compelling, at least for all the characters in the book. And so that was one reason why I didn't quite like this one as much as her other books. At number 7, we have The Apples Never Fall. I thought this book was generally pretty good. I know a lot of people don't like it quite as much. There is a lot of family relationships in all of her books, but sometimes she usually tries to also include slightly larger families, and she tries to deal with the friendships a little more. This one is pretty exclusively an inner-family struggle. I thought it was well done. The only real quibble I had with this one is it's a little longer than the rest. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for her books because I really enjoy her writing. I'm not here just to finish the book. I enjoy the journey, and so as I was reading it, I very much enjoyed getting to know the characters and getting to understand the way they're thinking. I would just say that in addition to being a little long, I did think that there were elements of the story that by the end, I was like, oh, I just felt like that was a little bit of a cop-out. I don't think that that was quite as well done as I would have expected. And I've seen this in other reviews, and that is that the actual ending seems to have been kind of tacked on. She clearly started this book before the pandemic started, and she finished it during the pandemic. And so she has a little twist just there in the end where she tries to accommodate the impact of the pandemic. And it just feels a little forced. I would have discouraged her from having that on there at all. I would have found some way for her to just kind of, ignore the pandemic. It's easy to say that you just wrote this before the pandemic. At number 6, we have Truly Madly Guilty. Also another one of her great books that really does all the things that I think she's really good at in terms of building up relationships and talking about the way people interact with each other. It's all there. And I really like most of the characters that she puts in this. And something I really like in this book is just how dynamic the characters are and explaining their relationships. Even though these people do not have a ton in common, even though these people have a lot that makes them very different, they still just have this attraction to each other simply based off the fact that they have a history together. And I think that's a really important relationship to explore. I've pointed this out before. When it comes to her books, the 2 big axes that you're generally working on include discovering how severe the actual mystery is. This is one of those ones where you don't know just how severe the mystery is until the very end. And I will admit, as you're going along, it's a little unsettling as you realize some elements of that mystery. And I won't give it all away. I will say that I generally enjoyed the ending, but just so you know, you may find yourself at a certain point being really anxious and really concerned about the mystery at the center of this in a way that you might not be so in some of her other books. Number 5, 9 Perfect Strangers. I would say that this is a solid book for her. There's a few things that she does a little different than in her other books. First of all, she's definitely a little more experimental. Second of all, even though she is a master of having a lot of different narratives going on at once, this one is even more so. This is probably twice as many point of view characters as any of her other books. I didn't count it, but I really think so, because it says 9 Perfect Strangers. That is still not even all of the point of views that you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of different point of views. And there's just some elements of the characters involved in this that are not stuff that she's had in any other books, that some things I think she does well and some things I think she does not do particularly well. She engages a little more with teenagers, something that you don't really see in her other books all that much, but I do think it's something that she was trying, and I thought in some cases it paid off. I do think there were a few things where it was a little harder to connect with, but all in all, I actually enjoyed the book more than the miniseries. At number 4, I would put The Hypnotist Love Story. This is actually one of her books that doesn't really have a huge mystery at the center of it. You are definitely learning stuff that goes along, and there are questions you have that won't really be answered until the end. But by and large, this is just someone explaining their love story, and I really enjoyed not just hearing the love story, but hearing the realities of trying to change your life and adjust your life, especially when it comes to a new or a blended marriage, or any kind of just dealing with people's past baggage and the way that works when you're trying to get into a new relationship. I generally enjoyed this book. I do think the fact that there was no big mystery at the center of it, made it maybe a little less engaging for some people, but I've never even said that that is the most important part of her writing, although when she does have a good mystery, I do really enjoy it. In this case, I didn't think it was one of its strong suits, but that's okay. I would still recommend this, and I would definitely put it in the top half of her books. At number 3, we have The Last Anniversary. This is one of her first books, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so good. It is one of these books where not only is there a mystery that you're trying to solve, which I love, just like in all of her books, when she goes to wrap it up, she makes it even more interesting when she tells you everything. And you are building out a big family, not just the immediate family, but also the people they're married to, and extended family, and friends, and other people that are getting involved with this larger family. And just the way she sets up the scene, I really enjoyed The Last Anniversary. And this was one of her first books that when I finished it, I thought, wow, that was really good writing, and I enjoyed it clear up to the end. Number 2 would be What Alice Forgot. Oh, I loved reading this book, and I frequently texted my sister and said, what did Alice forget? I really thought that from beginning to end, this was such an interesting read. I thought the premise was so fascinating. This is one of her books where the premise is a little more experimental than the rest. And it is also one of the books where from the get-go, you're trying to establish what is the severity of whatever thing has gone on that has changed these people's lives. And I think in this case that it's incredibly well done, and I really enjoyed when you do get to the end and you do discover. There are some people that could find a moment of disappointment, but I actually found it all the more interesting the way she did it, and I found it all the more authentic. And again, the way she wrote about it just made it so appealing. And I think it's such a great exploration of the challenges of being married for a long time, and also the challenges of when you're first married. If you're paying attention, then you know that number 1, of course, is going to be Big Little Lies. I do not think it's a surprise that this was the one that was turned into a miniseries, nor do I think it's a surprise that so much money and resources was put into making it a good miniseries, because it is an excellent book as well. In this book, it's all of the things that she does well. On top of that, the actual mystery at the middle of it is really good. I will tell you, and this is true of all of her books, there are definitely going to be trigger warnings in this one that you should be aware of if you're going to read it, such as questions of domestic abuse, or also the struggles of trying to raise a blended family. All of those things are going to be in this book. She also does a lot of different point of views, but she does it so well. And even though there are definitely questions of family relationships, I think the thing that I really enjoy about this book is it's not just about familiar relationships. This is about a larger community and its relationships. And I think she does such a good job. I think that this deserves to be at the top of the list. And I would say that if you want to read a Liane Moriarty book, this is a great one to go to. It is at the top of my list, so if you think all the others are a little less than this one, then that's fine. I still think that they're great books, and I would recommend any of them to anyone. I would love to know what order you would put this in if you were to change it up. Of course, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.